our children to school, we're actually the second educators in your children's life because you are the first teachers. And we want to work in partnership with all of you because we can't do this work alone.
Que su voz cuenta y que si nos unimos podemos lograr grandes cosas para nuestros hijos.
I love the diversity of the school district. Whether you know it or not, this district speaks 83 different languages.
To know that the administrative offices, they have my back. Not only my back, but they have my child's back.
Every child, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of income, regardless of need, every child deserves to have their needs met.
No one person can do it alone. The teachers can't do it alone. Administration cannot do it alone. It's going to take the parents, the community.
I'm very thankful for the partnerships that we have with our communities in both cities that represent our school district. We always ask the question, how can we even do this better? And I think that's where community schools come in because that takes us to the next level.
Welcome to the August 10th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. Superintendent, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Hui?
Here.
Ms. Larrett?
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse? Here. Mr. Reed?
Here.
All are accounted. Thank you.
All right. We will be going into closed session for issues related to student matters, employer-employee relations, conference with legal counsel regarding litigation, conference with real property negotiators, and personnel matters. But before we go into closed session, is there any public comment related to those subject matters? Nope, hearing none. We will then recess into closed session. We will be back at 6 p.m. Sharp for the start of the public session of the meeting. Welcome to the August 10th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and expect the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and/or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meetings are an important component of public engagement and transparency. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their speaking time to another member of the public. We did not receive any comments by the 3 p.m. deadline today. Per the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to enter into a two-way discussion on any matter that is not on the agenda. Superintendent, will you take the roll?
Yes, Mr. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Hui,
Here.
Ms. Larrett,
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse.
Here.
Mr. Reed,
Here.
Mr. Melajor,
Here.
Mr. Merrill.
Here.
All are accounted for. Thank you.
Let's see, item 5, reporting out of closed session. Superintendent?
Yes, we did take action in closed session. The board voted unanimously in closed session to adopt an administrative law judge's proposed decision upholding the termination of a probationary teacher.
All right. That takes us to agenda item 6, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion by Board Member Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Board Member Larrett. Superintendent?
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Hui,
Aye.
Ms. Larrett,
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse.
Aye.
Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Mr. Melajor,
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Agenda item 7 is an exciting item, special presentations, and we have the installation of our student board members, Matthew Melajor and from Vista del Lago High School, and Van Merrill from Cordova High School. Superintendent.
Yes, so this is an exciting time to administer the oath of office to our 2 new student board members who we warmly welcome to the dais, and we'll officially swear them in. I know they have a copy of the oath of office, but I'm going to stand and you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. You can both, you can both say your name separately, but you can repeat after me at the same time.
Gotcha.
Okay? I state your name, do solemnly affirm
I, Van Merrill, do solemnly affirm
I, Matthew Melajor, do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against enemies, foreign and domestic,
against enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation for purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation for purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, you are now officially both sworn in.
Do we want a picture? Or?
Maybe just stand. and-
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just come in close. Absolutely.
She wanted to be in
Yeah,
the picture.
bring it in, bring it in.
You're not gonna regret that, even though you're not.
That's always fun. All right. Item B, staff report, and I understand we do not have one tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. That takes us to public comment. This is the area on the agenda that the public is welcome to provide comments on anything that is not on the agenda. If there's an item on the agenda that you wish to comment on, there will be public comment. There will be public comment at that point in time on the agenda. So, is there any public comment today?
You have
Oh, I have a couple here. All right. Let's see. The first one is Lewis Keys. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Awesome. To the board, thank you guys for your time. We greatly appreciate it. My name is Lewis Keys. I am a teaching pastor at the Center of Praise Ministries, a longtime youth development professional, and also a proud supporter of Miracle University that is headed by Dr. Kadir Raja. I wanted to bring this to you all's attention because this is a wonderful program that I believe Dr. Kadir Raja and his team have implemented to support the nearly 4,000 annual dropouts here in Sacramento. And so we would love for each district, all 7 districts in Sacramento, to get behind this particular program. Our goal with Miracle University is to enroll every failing high school student that's headed to dropping out, headed to continuation school, juvenile hall, and into the prison system. I believe, even myself, as a native of Dallas, Texas, right? I'm from Dallas, Texas, but moved out here with my family to Sacramento in 2017. I have worked with at-risk youth here in the city of Sacramento, and I will tell you that a program like this is necessary for all districts to back, because there are so many young people who are going from our high schools straight into prisons. I can't tell you how many young people I've seen with ankle monitors, kids just as young as these young men right here. And congratulations again, by the way. Proud of you guys. Just like these young men, they're same age, but with ankle monitors and with records, that if they just had someone who believed in them, that they could trust in, that supported them, mentored them, they could be on a different path. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. He's a famous poet, and it's entitled "If." And in that poem, he talked about, basically, if he was speaking to a son, and he said, basically, if you can overcome the challenges of the world, if you can find yourself overcoming the challenges of the world, you will see that then you will, quote unquote, become a man, if you will. You will unlock the secrets to manhood, or to adulthood, if you will. And so I believe that getting behind Miracle University, if we can support, and if the board, again, if you all support Miracle University, you can help. There are young people who see their potential, right? There are young people that haven't seen, quote unquote, haven't seen their potential, right? And they are in need of support. They are in need of help, encouragement, and they have so much to offer, but there's so much adversity that they come against. And so I just want to encourage you all to get behind Miracle University, again, headed by Dr. Kadir Raja and his team. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Carmen Ayon. Welcome.
Good evening, respective board members. My name is Carmen Ayon. I'm a former student of the Twin Rivers Unified School District and an alumni from UC Berkeley. I'm here to advocate and encourage the installment of Miracle University to this district as well. This program, Miracle University, is a dropout prevention program that was installed at the Twin Rivers Unified School District. And it's to provide the opportunity for every failing high school student, specifically students from urban schools, specifically from students from the Del Paso Heights community, to improve the opportunity and to decrease the dropout rate here in the city of Sacramento. This will improve the graduation rates, attendance, UC college going rates, and student achievement, and improve the safety of the school and the community overall. Every student at risk deserves the opportunity to not be enrolled into the school to prison pipeline. As we see through statistics and data, it's no It's no surprise that disenfranchised students are the ones going into the school to prison pipeline, and specifically this program would stop that. I wanted to share some details with you guys that 31 students that were written off as potential dropouts were enrolled into the Miracle University program in January of 2023. And 6 months later, all 31 students rose from years of academic failure, poor attendance, hopelessness to graduate from high school, and they graduated high school pursuing higher education or the career force. So definitely here to encourage all you guys for this installment of the Miracle University Dropout Prevention Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Aaron Cordova. Welcome.
Good evening, board. My name is Aaron Cardozo. I'm the president of an organization called Brother to Brother. I do a lot of good work with our kids in our neighborhood, from gun violence into gangbanging. And I once was one of those kids. I did drop out in the 10th grade. And when I dropped out, I ended up going to prison. And I did 10 years in the penitentiary, came home. I've been out 20 years now, but I just want to talk about Miracle University. The lead guy on the Miracle University helped me go back to school and get my high school diploma. And I'm 50 years old, and I just got my diploma 2022. So, right? Right, so it's never too late to graduate. It's never too late to really focus on the kids. And so, like I said, the lead is the one that got me to do it. You know, I kind of gave up on education when I dropped out. But this program is going to have so many mentors, and mentors are special to our kids. I feel every kid needs a mentor, right? Somebody needs to talk to them. And so these kids will be identified as dropouts, failures in school, and they will have one-on-ones with these mentors and go knocking on doors to get them to come to school and graduate. So I just want you guys to be encouraged on Miracle University and to really focus on getting it into this district, because it's well needed all around the city of Sacramento. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. Next speaker is Afzal Rashid. Sorry. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody, and it was so wonderful to witness the new student board members. It was really a good thing to see. My name is Afzal Rashid. I'm the chairperson of a nonprofit organization, 501c3 organization called Immigrant Integration and Empowerment. I'm a former teacher, professor of economics at Westland College, currently retired, but also volunteer with a lot of school districts. As you probably know, there is a big influx of immigrants into Sacramento and this greater Sacramento area. And I work very closely with students and parents. And recently I've witnessed that a lot of these students have issues with mental health, and also culturally they have to adopt here. Academically they have problems. And as some of my other colleagues, the people that I didn't know that will speak about Miracle University, I have encountered and come to know that Miracle University has a holistic program. And for kids who are failing and don't have any other hope, and specifically with mental health issues, a holistic program is really critical, where there are mentors, tutors, and kind of holistic approach to the whole issue of failing those kids. And I think I really admire teachers in all of these districts. They have the most difficult job that I can see, and I appreciate what they do. But I think a component like that, added to students that are really struggling, that the teachers in their funding cannot reach, is probably a good win-win situation for everybody. It's a win situation for the community, because a large number of the dropouts end up in prisons. It is a win situation for the families family and for the kid and also for the school system. So I hope that you guys will consider putting this next on your agenda and talk about programs like Miracle University. That would be wonderful. Thank you for your time again, and congratulations to you too.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tio Sessoms. Welcome.
Good evening. My apologies for being late, but congratulations. Traffic is coming from downtown is rough. My name is Theo De Niro Sessoms. I am here speaking on behalf of Miracle University, care of Trend Consulting, which is my company, as well as Exodus Project. I'm an employment specialist for an organization called Exodus Project. Exodus Project assists those returning citizens coming home from jails and prisons. My job as an employment specialist is to see to it that they find careers versus just a job. Everybody here knows that a job you can easily walk away from, a career you can't. What Miracle University does is, so I'm class of 98, right? It was a few years ago. But for the most part, I was kicked out of 2 districts, Sacramento's district as well as Elk Grove district. It could have been my fault, maybe it wasn't, but that's the situation, that's the past. If Miracle University would have actually been in place for me, I would have been able to graduate on time because I had the motivation. A lot of these children, they actually have the motivation, they just don't have the backing of the community. Everybody has the saying of, everyone's heard the old adage of, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, and it also takes that same village to help another child graduate on time. What we are asking for the Folsom Rancho Cordova district to do is be as motivated as we are in seeing to it that these dropouts, alleged dropouts, can become graduates as well and be put in stronger positions as these young men right here. A footnote about myself, once I did not graduate on time in the class of 98, 1999, I was sentenced to life without plus 15 years. Sentenced to life without plus 15 years in the California Department of Corrections. It took me 18 years to get back. These kids that are graduating right now are 18. So it's really their entire lives that I sat in prison fighting to get back. And due to my stubbornness, it was what allowed me to be able to fight and be brought back through the Ninth Circuit as well as the U.S. Supreme Court based on illegal police tactics. But since I've been home, which is my 6th year, I've graduated from ARC, CRC, Sac City, and I'm now at Sac State taking care of my business for a CRJ bachelor's degree, which I'll be going on for my doctorate. These kids have the same stubbornness. Let's avoid them going to prison. Let's put them in a stronger position to where they're able to do everything that I'm doing from 18 to 25, and they'll be doctors later on. Thank you for your time. Good day.
Thank you. Let's see. Next speaker is Daniel Chastain. Welcome.
Good evening, community. Good evening, panel. Thank you for the opportunity for being here to express how big of a concern this dropout rate is with our youth. We're having a problem. I was a dropout as well. I went to the Elk Grove district. At 17 years old, I was kicked out of the Elk Grove community as well. And shortly after that, I found myself in prison. 29 years, I just returned home a year ago. There is a problem with the communication, with understanding those troubled youth, those youth who are at risk. This is our focal point. If we can get to those youth, then we can help this community. We can help all of our communities. The crime rate, the murder rate, the gang violence, all of that stuff will be able to cease if they have individuals who are like ourselves, who have returned home, who understand what the problem was. We didn't understand what was going on with ourselves. But if we have someone who has walked in their shoes, to be able to give them a little insight of themselves on why they are doing what they are doing, I believe that the community at large will be safer for everyone. If we can graduate these young individuals, they can be the next up here on the panel. They can be the next business owners. They can be the next in this community who help uphold it when they have a respect for it, not a desire to protect it, right? If we can get Miracle Village in this school system, I believe that it will help tremendously, because they will have someone who understands their language, understands what they're talking, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and what they believe. We have not asked these children any of these things. We just put them on the bus to go to school, and that's it. There's no real care or concern. There wasn't for me. And I had to find out through the University of Hard Knocks what was going on with me to be able to sit here in front of you today to promote and encourage this program. My name is Daniel Chastain, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we have Marvin Mitchell. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Kind of tired, just got off work, but I just wanted to say that I'm a concerned person in the community. As Daniel mentioned, I'm someone who also dropped out of school and became a delinquent and eventually a ward of the state, 26 and a half years. I just been out a year, and I have a nonprofit called Gang Tragedy Awareness. And we focus on changing mindsets, because you can give a kid all of the resources that they can handle, but if they don't change what's going on up here, then nothing's ever going to change. And I'm a person who's an expert in my own experience, because when I talk to kids, when I engage with kids, I don't tell a glory story. I tell my story with full vulnerability, so that they can have permission themselves to walk the path that I'm now walking. I have a degree in associated science in HVAC, and I'm out here working for a Villar Corporation right now, and I'm doing all the right things, and I'm still as fly as I want to be, and the kids, and that's what I'm trying to put out there. And I think that school districts need someone like myself who can come in and relate to kids and help them get back to who they are. And we do this through a process which is insight to gain insight, insight to gain foresight. So moving forward, we're making decisions already of forethought, so that we already know that we're going to sidestep anything that can get us in trouble. And so I just really am concerned, and I would like to be involved in these at-risk youth kids' life, because I know what they're going through, and my program really speaks to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, Superintendent Collegium?
Yes.
Is there an employee that folks can reach out with information about Miracle University?
Yes, and a matter of fact, Dr. Kadir met with Kate Hazarian and Scott Meyer. I just found that out in an email yesterday. So yes, we have a connection, and we're, I think, interested in attending some of the events so we can learn more.
Okay, thank you. That's all the cards I have. Is there any other speakers? Anybody online? Okay. All right, that brings us back to the agenda, item 19, 19, if only, right? Item 9, reports of district organizations. We'll start with the Student Advisory Board. Any report tonight?
Yes, hello everyone. We had a great first impression of our new Student Advisory Board members. We saw new faces as well as old ones at our SAB summer retreat that we just held just last month. We had a phenomenal speaker, Mr. Taylor, who taught our students the importance of self-empowerment, as well as a few activities to help us get to know the students and their suggestions for the school and for their district. We are looking forward to future SAB meetings and implementing ideas that they present with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the California School Employees Association. Welcome.
My favorite time. Thank you for having me. I actually got something to report tonight. I'll start off with usually what Dr. Kaligi and I say. We have glows and grows throughout the district. Part of our glows and grows of starting throughout this school year, this beginning of the school year has been great. We started out with a good IA training on Friday, and I've got a lot of great feedback about the campus monitors trainings this past Monday. That has been a huge grow for the district in that sense, and a glow right now. I'm gonna get it right. You got it nailed. As far as the grows go, we had a communication come out roughly a month ago that classified staff would not be paid for mandatory training required to be employed. It caused a lot of confusion with classified staff. We tried to work through it to get a statement worked out. We have since come up with our own statement. We'll be sending it out. If it didn't get sent out today, it will be sent out tomorrow. Classified staff does get paid for their mandated training, which would include the mandated reporting, sexual harassment, and all that. I wanted to make sure classified staff knows they do get paid for that. I do have other stuff. Oh yeah. The sites look good, right? I'd like to throw a little acknowledgement out to the team I work with most, which would be the grounds and maintenance throughout the district. They had 43 days to complete a task. That's not easy to complete with what we have. We use summer help and we push our team to the limits. They work 6 days a week, a lot of them. Some of them that led the group were Jose Delgado, who led the construction crew on many projects throughout the district, one of them being Sutter, and all the daycares. I don't know why I get so nervous up here.
Doing fine.
James Broussard, who's done a wonderful job painting throughout the district. I don't know if any of you have seen Sandra J. Gallardo, but it looks like a new school right now. The grounds look immaculate. We have a great grounds crew. Preemie has done an awesome job of keeping up the irrigation throughout the district. That's almost a one-man crew on the irrigation, and he does drive the grounds crews throughout. Bill Miller had a ton of stuff to do with PIV valves throughout the district. He was able to get all that complete. Jerry North, I can go on forever. My team, if any of you teachers are without air right now, I apologize. We are working on it. There are parts on order. There's 3 of us working on 40 sites. Tim Ortiz, James Corey, obviously me. I don't get to do as much work because I have other duties too. But anyways, I'd like to throw a little appreciation towards our way and thank everybody for having me.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have the Folsom Cordova Education Association. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Jeanette Sansenbach for FCA, and I'm new president. So good evening, family, board members, staff, and teachers, and congratulations, gentlemen. You guys look great after sitting up there. So this is a special night for me. So this is my first in-person report that I'm giving as president. Tracy, my executive officer, reported back in June. The June meeting since I was either out of town or playing grandma. So, and today, the second late, today is my birthday, and I'm the young at 59. So I'll be leaving shortly after the meeting, after I present. So this year's main focus for our union membership, engagement for all. What does that look like, you may ask? Simply, it means more involvement by all of our members. The executive board will be visiting sites and getting to know their members who they represent. Members can attend social gatherings to get to know each other as the district continues to grow into a much larger community. Additionally, you will be seeing and hearing from our sites with highlights from their schools and also challenges they face. But understand, as we present challenges, we will also have solutions. Please listen. Last Tuesday, I had the opportunity to meet 150 new educators that joined our FCUSD family, and more are still coming. One of our district's focus directives is to retain teachers. One pathway implemented to support our incoming teachers are the new teacher TOSAs to support and our site-based instructional coaches. Another path will be the compensation package being presented at negotiations on August 30th. We are eager to hear this offer. Our hope is that it is an extensive package that includes not only salary and benefits, but also support that could include more counselors, more intervention teachers or academic coaches, behavioral psychologists, certificated librarians, and much more. We are committed to providing the best possible to our students and families. As we continue to hear from our educational partners, students deserve the best. Know that to accomplish this, our teachers, novice and experienced, also deserve the best. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Jeanette. All right, next we have the Folsom Cordova Leadership Association.
Good evening, Dr. Klegian, President Reed, members of the board, esteemed colleagues, and honored guest. And congratulations to both our new student board members. And Van, your mom was my student years ago, believe it or not. I know, I just dated myself, sorry. Majority of our elementary schools started off this year with a meet and greet for our kindergartners and TK programs, or a Lemonade Social, which was awesome. I'm just gonna give you a list of things that our administrators across the districts have done: certificated, confidential, and classified management. Several schools collected school supplies throughout the summer. Dr. Pease led the Soaring Scholars Backpack Drive. Our community school team volunteered with the Rancho Cordova Food Locker, and they also joined our health service department to create opportunity for our athletes to get physical exams in June, and they have another one coming up this Saturday at Mills Middle School for our students. 94 campus monitors and yard supervisors were trained on Monday by our ADP office. 20-day challenge. This is classified, certificated, and district staffed, focusing on removing barriers for students and building trust and relationships. That kicked off also on Tuesday. Our secondary school sites held their annual web or link crew activities of transitioning 6th graders and 9th graders. Each department spent the summer preparing, whether it was ETIS clearing 3,000 tickets, maintenance, so able to clear the majority of the work orders, in addition to the long list of deferred maintenance work, facilities completing Blanche Branch Elementary School, fiscal department closing out the books on last year and starting the books on this year. ESC department organizing the maximum space and collaborating for efficiency. Food services increasing points of sale locations at our sites to be able to serve all our students, and the list goes on. Our commonality among all of this is our sites and departments we're able to facilitate events to help our students build connections and get comfortable as they start off this year. FCLA is committed to this year to inspiring our leadership team, our students, and our community. We look forward to building connections with our students, among our colleagues, and being resources for our community. We're excited to help our students thrive through educational excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have the District English Learner Advisory Committee.
No report this evening.
Okay. All right, that takes us to Agenda 10, Agenda Consent. I've received a request from Board Member Larrett to take N and O off of the consent agenda. And I haven't had any other requests. So is there a motion to approve the agenda consent with the exception of items N and O?
I'll motion.
I'm sorry. Okay. A motion by Board Member Lofthouse. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. And I have to get used to it. Let's see. Second by Board Member Melajor, correct? Okay. All right. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Bellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. I guess we'll take N first.
Do you need to read it or?
Oh, yeah, I guess I should read it. Sorry. Item N is approve revised board policy 5132, dress and grooming. I guess superintendent and then if.
This policy was presented at our policy subcommittee on May 1st, and the actual board policy does not have changes. We are looking at putting together a committee. There was a committee that met all last year too, so some of the verbiage that you see as recommendations are in the parent handbook and would be revised in the administrative regulation. So we're not making major changes in the policy, although CSBA had some policy changes that are included with the highlights. But the committee that will meet this year will look at the current implementation of that policy and determine if any other changes need to be made. Dr. Huber and his team could probably speak to more of the details, but any specific questions?
Yeah, I want to make sure that when we're rolling out our dress code, that we are, I know that we kind of had a discussion that we're not really here to, get kids into the workplace, but really that's really what we are doing. We are trying to prepare kids for the future and future employment and future educational goals and things like that. And so when we're looking at the dress code, that we are setting them up for success. And I think sometimes having them necessarily come in pajama pants, maybe not be setting the tone for what's going to be, coming for them in the future. You could not go into an employment situation probably in that situation unless you were working from home. So I just really want to stress as we are kind of looking at the dress code this next year that we are kind of looking at it in that frame of mind of that we do need to set them on a path of some professionalism and things like that. And, I think that it sets the tone for kind of how the day goes. It's hard when we have coaches that are stressing that on game days that they're either dressed up or dressed in a polo shirt, but then on the rest of the days we're not. So just getting some consistency, I think, with the dress code, I think would be good, and just making sure that messaging is on that plane, I think. So that's just kind of where my concern is that I'm not sure that we're kind of moving that forward in that direction.
And just as I didn't add this earlier, on our committee, we will have 2 board members, so we'll ask for 2 volunteers to be on that committee as well. And so if you would like to step up into that, we'll make sure Dr. Huber has that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other board comments on item N?
Yeah, I just, and excuse me, I got fitted for a retainer today, so I'm kind of slurring here. I know we're talking about professionalism in the dress for our students, and I have to look at our students in Rancho Cordova who don't have the means to dress professionally. The pajama pants, I agree. But sometimes they have to wear what they wear. And I hear stories, especially with families that I work with in Rancho Cordova and as well as out in Del Paso Heights, that they're wearing hand-me-downs. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Growing up, we weren't as fortunate, and I sometimes had to sport my brother's hand-me-downs. But I just understand that, if we're going to talk about professionalism and how our kids are going to dress, we have to take into account the family's economic status, if they're able to afford those clothing. And then we move forward from there. But I know that CSBA will be looking at that. I believe in our next board meeting at the end of September with the dress code and coming out with other recommendations. But I just kind of wanted to add that in about the affordability of clothing, especially for our families in Rancho Cordova. I did reach out, and I think Ms. Laird, we talked yesterday about the football team, and I was fortunate enough to land a deal with Casual XL, the big and tall, to get them some nice looking clothes, jackets, slacks and polos, because those linemen and linebackers are huge. Now, I don't know what they're feeding them, but they're big boys. So, we can work on that. But I'm just concerned about some of the other families in Rancho Cordova that don't have the means to, afford those clothes. That's it.
Okay. Board Member Hui?
Yeah, and Board Member Clark, thanks for bringing that up. I think it's always a good reminder that policy is not just this black and white thing, but has far-reaching impact. It does make me excited for the work that's going on with our community schools, which I think would present a good opportunity for those connections
Absolutely.
like you're talking about. Just for the sake of tonight, though, I do think it'd be important, Dr. Kaligian or maybe Ms. Azarian, I'm not sure who's the right person here. Can you speak a little bit to resources that might be available if families do need, clothes for school or just some basic necessities? Is that something that we could touch on real quickly?
Sure, and there are multiple ways that we can make those connections for families if they have clothing needs, and those connections happen either at the school or at the district level. It happens through community schools, so each school in Rancho Cordova has a community school specialist now, and if the family doesn't know who that person is, we'll want to make sure that, they speak to either the student's teacher or the principal, so we connect them. We also have foster and homeless services that are providing back-to-school supplies as well as commodities and clothing and those kinds of needs. Our independent study students at Walnutwood, they have a closet, a clothing closet there, as do our facility at CLC. So, there's opportunities. I think it's connecting our families with someone who can access those resources. The resources are there, and Ms. Hazarian and also Carla Davis, who is our coordinator of community schools, may have other connections too within the community and the district to help with that. So we definitely want to know who, so we can help.
I'd like to leave a comment.
Yes, please.
Great words, Mr. Clark. I really appreciate that you considered all the perspectives. I think that's something essential that we need to have when we're having this kind of discussion. But when we're talking about the dress code, we need to ensure that even students are being represented. I know Dr. Kaligian, you talked about a subcommittee. I'd like to see some SAB members as well, not just board members on that conversation, because I think that is a really important issue that is impacting the students directly. So we should be able to have some student voices on it. And especially with this changing work environment, COVID-19 really drastically changed how we show up to work. I've been in Zooms where my top half is like a suit, bottom half is pajama pants. I'm sure you guys can relate. But I've seen some teachers wear flip-flops to school, sandals to school. And when we're talking about dress code, I think that we should also be talking about faculty. And so I want to make sure that standards for not only students, but faculty is being addressed when we're discussing dress code. And so we should even celebrate that these students are coming to school in the first place. I know we already talked about this, but when we're considering our district priorities, I know we're going to discuss this a bit later. I want to just ensure that the students are being considered. We're celebrating these students' successes. They're showing up to school. They put the time, they put the effort to even show up in the first place. So that's just my 2 cents, and yeah.
Thank you. Any other board members?
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Yes,
Matthew, you kind of actually took words out of my mouth. I want to make sure that we know that we're dealing with attendance issues. And if we are creating more barriers for students to get to school or to feel comfortable coming to school or just showing up, that's the first step. And our goal right now should be to get all of our students to school so that they can learn. And I think that when we take a step back and recognize that what they wear doesn't negatively or positively affect whether or not they are sitting in the classroom and they're learning. And so for them to be successful, for them to move into the professional world, they have to come to school. And if we are continually placing multiple barriers in doing so, we will see that attendance not go up, which is what we need, so.
Okay. And Superintendent, remind me, was there going to be a kind of like a mid-year, just coming back and letting us know how things are going? Is that right?
Yes, along with the formation of the subcommittee. And it sounds like we've got interest. And we had students on the subcommittee last year. I believe one of our student board members was on that committee. Maybe both of them were. And we'll have them again, or student representation from who you would like to appoint.
So yes, we'll bring it back.
I will say, I live just several blocks from Folsom High School, so sometimes if I time my leaving of the house in the morning poorly, as I did this week, I get to see more than several hundred students pass me as they're walking to school. And I will say that I was very impressed that, with the exception of 5, they all seem to be adhering to last year's dress code. So, I guess we'll wait and see how things play out. So, if there's no other actually, since we pulled it off of the agenda, is there any public comments? Online? No? Okay. Is there a motion to...
Sorry, Board President.
Yes.
Can I just make a clarification here?
Yeah.
And Dr. Klee, I know you explained this up front. I just want to make sure we know what we're voting on. There weren't any substantial changes, it sounds like, to the policy. We're voting to approve what revisions then?
Dr. Huber, do you want to speak to, the policy itself and the continuation?
Yeah, we basically brought it forward in this format just because last year, as we ended the year, there is still room for discussion. And one of the things we determined was that one of the errors we made is that we didn't have board representation. A lot of student representation, parent representation, faculty and staff representation, but nobody from the board. So the whole thing was brought forward at the same time. And so this is a continuation of that. There really is no change to board policy. Things are status quo as last year. And administration will be upholding the board policy as it is right now in terms of status quo, with a recommendation being expected sometime before probably winter break in terms of if we want to make changes to actual board policy and the dress code itself.
I'm just wondering if it's something that we need to vote on if there's no change to the policy, but we're just adding board members to the committee. It's a
good question. If there's no changes to the board.
No, we're continuing the committee and then adding board members to it, so there really is no change. So perhaps that was my error in terms of actually bringing this forward. Perhaps it doesn't actually need a vote.
Yeah, I think we could probably table it because nothing changed, and at the time that we bring it back forward, if we do make those changes at that time, that would probably be the appropriate time to vote on any changes. But because it is status quo, we wanted to make sure it was daylighted and it was public, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it, and then also the subcommittee reconvening. Okay. So I think tabling it now would be appropriate.
Okay, and we need to make a motion to table it?
Yes.
I'll move that we table this.
Okay. All right, a motion by Board Member Hui. Is there a second?
No, second.
Second by Board Member Clark. Superintendent, take the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Mellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries to table the action till later. Thank you.
All right, next item is item O, approve contractor for lease back contract and adopt resolution number 8-10-23-02, approving construction agreements with Core Construction, Cordova High School Performing Arts Center repair project. Superintendent.
It's a lengthy title, but I think it describes what the board action request is for. This is to repair the water leak issue that we had in the Performing Arts Center that occurred shortly after the building was constructed. So we'll entertain any questions that you might have, Ms. Larrett.
I literally just have one question. Mr. Washburn knows it's my favorite topic. Just when we're doing the repairs, if there is extra budget money, if we could change the sign on the front to be bigger so people can see it.
That's one of the items I know was brought up part of the RC SAC discussion as well. So we're looking at some options as to something we can possibly do on that as well.
Fantastic, thank you. It's just small and it's behind a tree, so some people walk in thinking that it's the basketball stadium.
We might look at actually leaving that, but putting something out further in a planter box that actually has lights on it or something.
Amazing, thank you, appreciate it.
You bet.
Any other questions on that item? Public comment? No? All right. Is there a motion to adopt item O?
I'll move.
A motion by Board Member Larrett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll go with Board Member Lofthouse. Superintendent.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Mellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, Superintendent, I understand we have some introductions.
We sure do. One of the consent items that the board approved was the personnel action form, and as it has been our practice, we like to introduce to our board and our community a new folks in leadership positions, either new to our district or in a different position. So it's my pleasure to first announce our new principal at Mather Heights Elementary, Mr. Joel Francisco. And as Joel walks to the podium, and we give him a round of applause, I'm going to share a few words about his experience and where he is now. So Mr. Francisco has over 30 years of experience in education, extensive experience teaching and leading schools that serve diverse student populations. He's taught English as a second language all over the world, as a university professor in the Philippines and with United Nations. His expertise brought him to the California Department of Education, where he spent several years supporting programs and initiatives for English language instruction and assessments. He's a familiar face in Folsom, Cordova, as he's been with us since 2001, and for the past 5 years, he's served as assistant principal at Cordova High School and as summer school principal. So we're very excited to be welcoming Mr. Joel Francisco into his first principalship in our district at Mather Heights Elementary School.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaligian. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Kaligian, President Reed, and members of the board. I am deeply honored to serve the students, parents, staff, and the community of Mather Heights Elementary School. And with the help of my staff, I will work hard, being very competitive, to make Mather Heights one of the best schools in the Sacramento region, if not the whole state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Francisco. Next, it's my pleasure to announce Dr. Freddie Castro as the new assistant principal at Cordova High School and joining our district as a new face in the district and replacing Mr. Francisco's vacant position. Welcome, Dr. Castro. And a little bit of background. With over 10 years of experience in education, Dr. Castro brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the Lancer community. He began his journey in education as a science teacher for Fairfield-Suisun Unified School District. His commitment to closing achievement gaps for underachieving students was evident as he strived to ensure that students had equal access to a quality education. Recognizing his potential to affect change on a broader scale, he later joined the California Department of Education. And while he was there, he proved to be a valuable member of that team. His heart has always been drawn to the front-facing role of directly serving students in a school environment. And with that, I think that's what's drawn Dr. Castro back into the classroom. He is bilingual in English and Spanish, and his linguistic abilities allow him to connect with a more diverse range of students and parents, fostering a deeper sense of connection within the school community. Very excited to be inviting you to join the team, Dr. Castro, and welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Kaligian, for that warm welcome. No, my apologies to the board for my soon-to-be 3-year-old. It's a very special moment to have my family here with me. To everyone in attendance here, to our esteemed board members, our executive leadership, our staff, our stakeholders, our community partners, parents, and above all, our students. It is my pleasure to be here tonight and be introduced as one of the new assistant principals at Cordova High School. Cordova High School to me reminds me a lot of where I grew up. It's evident that it's founded on deep-rooted community connections. This community is where families grow and reside in, not just for single generations, but for multiple generations. I see myself in the students at Cordova High School as well. As a first-generation Mexican-American, I have firsthand experienced the opportunities that a California education can provide and offer all its students. I'm hoping to build, cultivate the values that the FCUSD holds and continue to grow our vision of empowering all students to thrive through educational excellence. Finally, to our esteemed board members, to our President Reed, and to our Vice President Huey, as I told the executive board during my second round interview, I'm appreciative of the chances that I have gotten in life, and I do not take this opportunity for granted, nor do I take it lightly. I hope to show you that I'm committed to the Folsom Cordova Unified School District and the students at Cordova High School for years to come. And I plan to go above and beyond to make sure that you feel that you made the best decision in hiring me. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the honor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. And third, we'd like to welcome and announce our new head cross-country coach at Vista Del Lago High School, Mr. Daniel West. Welcome, Daniel. Coach West is an experienced distance runner with over 30 years of experience, including competitive running at the collegiate level. His love and passion for track and cross country continues to this day, and his dedication and commitment to distance running has qualified him for the Boston Marathon. No small feat there. Coach West is an active member of our community and has served as a scout leader for Folsom Pack 735 and Folsom Troops 237 since 2006. He has called Folsom his hometown since 2001, and his children also attend Folsom Cordova schools. Welcome, Coach West.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to join the Vista Cross Country program. It's a great program, great group of student athletes that we're working with, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to continue the success of the program going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that takes us to agenda item 11, discussion action. First item is approve the reorganization feasibility study agreement with Social Services of California and the memorandum of understanding cost sharing agreement with the City of Rancho Cordova, City of Folsom, and the Folsom Cordova Unified School District. Superintendent.
Yes, this item came before the board at the June 15th board meeting, and we had our consultant from School Services who gave an overview of the process also joining us at that time. The conclusion at the end of the June 15th meeting is when we talked about the MOU and the cost for the feasibility study, the question was asked by the board if the two city partners would be interested in sharing in that cost. And since that time, they have both agreed, and their city councils also have agreed that they will share 1/3 of the cost. So each agency would be paying $24,167 towards the cost of the MOU for the feasibility study. Once the feasibility or the board takes action on the feasibility study, then School Services would start the scope of work, which could take up to 8 to 10 weeks with their analysis of the data. Then they'll bring that report back to the district. And at that time, we'll reconvene a joint meeting with both city councils and the board to review that data as well. So that would be the plan for the feasibility study. And there was also a question asked at the last meeting about the protection of existing staff. Would they maintain the same employment status if a reorganization of a school district were to take place? And Ed Code 3555 and 35556 speak to that, and they both confirm that they maintain their existing status. Although new labor agreements would have to be created with the two separate districts. So we wanted to report back to you on that data point as well. And does the board have any other further questions?
Questions? Okay. Any comments from the public? Online? All right, back to the board, unless there's any final.
Just one comment. I just want to thank Mr. Clark for the comments on this. The last board meeting we had it. The financial part of it's one thing. It's great if we move forward and the two cities are willing to share in this. But as I've reflected on this, it feels much better moving forward, knowing that whatever the outcome is, we kind of have unity amongst both cities and the school district. That this isn't a good thing to look at least. So. Appreciate you leading us on that.
You're welcome, Mr. President. Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, if I may. Well, here we are looking at this, and we're going to move forward. And for the record, I am for this study. I want to see where we are as far as the 9 criteria that we are to meet. But of course, I will throw that proverbial what if out there. What if we don't meet the 9 criteria? Where does it go from here? I don't think I was really clear on where does it go? Does it just say we don't meet the criteria, which quite honestly, I don't think we will. But where does it go after that? Do we choose to say, okay, well, it's okay, we'll move forward? Or does it just die?
And I think at the time when we have the final report and we hear, the specifics of the criteria, it will be board action that determines next steps based on what that report says. And depending what the board's action is and consensus is from that, will determine the next steps, if there are any next steps from either city at that point. Or is it a direction from the school district?
Okay, can you clarify from either city? Does that mean that city of Folsom or the city of Rancho Cordova can basically move forward? I mean,
They have the ability to do that. And Mr. Martin can elaborate on that a little bit more.
That's correct, yes. Any of the three entities could petition the County Board of Reorganization, that's SCOE. Mr. Clark, you're our representative on that board.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it would go through the process to the county, who would do their own analysis and then make their recommendation, and then potentially it could move forward to the state. So yes, it could move forward from this board or from one of the city councils based off of the council's determination. And really the analysis that we are doing is kind of a preliminary one. The reorganization committee from the county would also do their own analysis potentially.
absolutely. So would that mean that you would have to spend more staff time, or what you're doing now with the study, helping out, getting everything together, that's your role, that's it, and it moves on?
I definitely think there would be additional conversations that staff would have to provide information. I don't know what entity the reorganization committee would use to do the analysis, but I'm sure data would be needed, and so that would be part of the process, yes.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes.
Mr. Clark, you couldn't have said it better seeing where we are right now. I'm a big fan of the numbers. You got to analyze all the statistics, all the perspectives. So I understand how contentious this issue is, where clearly there is some debate about whether or not splitting the district is feasible in the first place. So I'm all for the study as well. I think seeing some numbers, seeing some clarity should provide us with better reasoning to go forward or maybe not consider splitting this district. But I want to emphasize that we should still focus on our students and putting our faculty at heart. We shouldn't wait until there is a yes or no decision from the study to make a decision, right? We should still allocate some time and some resources, because $72,500 is a lot of money and it can be invested somewhere else. So in terms of bettering our students or bettering our faculty, bettering our facilities, that we can invest some time right now instead of waiting for results from the study to better our district. And so I just want to make sure we're considering that before we make a decision based on this study.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Yes.
I am going to be voting no this evening on this, mostly because of a fiscal. We spend many hours looking at our budget, and I don't think it's fiscally responsible to put any dollars towards this when our data shown from staff reflected that we would not meet the 9 criteria. And so I don't feel like it's responsible of us as a district to put any money towards an outside agency telling us exactly what our staff already has. So I will be voting no on that. However, I want to make it clear that my vote for no on that does not mean I don't see inequities in the district. And so my concern right now, or in 3 months, when we get these results back and whether it says yes or no, it's feasible, that as a unified district, we are looking at those inequities and doing our very best for our students. And so fiscally, I don't think it's responsible. However, for our students, a lot has been brought out on the table that really needs to be taken care of. And as a board, as a district, we need to be committed to ensuring that those inequities go away regardless. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other? No? Public comment? No? All right. Is there a motion to approve item A?
I'll move.
Motion by Board Member Lorette. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hui. Superintendent?
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Mellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see, next item B is approval of 45-day budget revision. Superintendent?
Yes, at the last board meeting, our June 15th meeting, Mr. Martin brought forward our budget that the board adopted for the 23-24 school year. The governor did approve a state budget on June 27th. And per ed code, school districts have 45 days to make any budget revisions to align with whatever the final actions were in the governor's budget. So tonight's budget revision will reflect that, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Martin to share some of those highlights.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, as Dr. Koligian shared, we actually have till tomorrow to present our 45-day budget, so it worked out very well for everybody involved. It is a requirement that we bring this to you every year. Really, financially, with this budget, we're not seeing as much of a significant change from what was adopted in June. So we're just going to really highlight the primary big areas of change. There was obviously some other areas that I'm not covering with regards to some policy things, updating of other information. We're still waiting on some of the trailer bill language, so there will potentially be additional impacts. But the key pieces when it comes to the financial side, we're going to talk about today. So the primary area that we always look at is our local control funding formula. That's the primary funding source, about 70% of our revenue. And we received an 8.22% COLA. That's excellent. And that was already in the budget in June. So there is really no financial change from what we adopted in June when it comes to the local control funding formula. There is a new program that the budget included, the governor had proposed, which was called the Equity Multiplier. It significantly did change the parameters of it, though, from what was originally proposed by the governor. Governor's proposal was if a school site had a free rate, a participation rate of 90% or higher. It was a very, very high bar to reach. And at that time, none of our schools would have qualified. The final agreed upon language, though, did change it. It created one category that we're relatively familiar with, which is socioeconomically disadvantaged. So if a student falls into that category, and you can see the parameters there, parents don't have high school diploma, they are qualified for free or reduced, migratory children, homeless, foster youth, they qualify as socioeconomic. And if you have to have at least 70% of the students, and this is school site based, so it's every school site, is above that, then that qualifies of one of the two categories, but you have to qualify for two. The second one is a relatively new terminology that we're not actually, it's not something that we have been at the district level been actively tracking. It is information that is available at the state level, and it's a non-stability rate. And it really comes down to the transient population of your students, how many days your students are in at that school site. And so you can see there, if the students are enrolled in less than 245 continuous days between the school year, or exit due to specific reasons, as you can see there as well, they will be counted. And if 25% of the student population or greater meets that non-stability rate, then with that, and if your economic rate, a socioeconomic disadvantage rate is above 70%, then you qualify for this funding. So it's very, very specific. They were obviously targeting certain demographics, certain communities with these funds. And we do actually have some districts that are some school sites that will qualify. So I'll bring that up on the next slide. With this funding, though, we do want to share that similar to the LCAP, where we have to show data and evidence that the dollars are being used to supplement existing programs, right, enhance programs for these student populations. We will have to do that, and which is very similar to LCAP process. And we will also be required to get stakeholder feedback as part of that process. Again, similar to LCAP. So it really is going to probably be just an additional component to the LCAP process for those specific school sites. And so based off of 21-22 data, and I want to make that clear that this is assumption data based off a prior year that we would have 3 school sites qualify. we don't have a way to easily identify the stability rate. And so we're waiting until the state provides that, which we have been told we should see it in the next month or so. But that's not been for sure at this point. And a lot of times when new programs are implemented, we don't actually have all of the details on how the funding works and how of those pieces until normally November, December. Just because once the legislature creates the trailer bill that gives the parameters, then CDE has to take that information and then determine the rules and the audit guide associated with that, and then the allocation of funding. CDE actually is the entity that does that. But based off of the information from school services, we do believe 3 of our school sites will qualify: Cordova Meadows, Cordova Villa, and Kinney High. And they would receive, it looks like anywhere from $100,000 at Kinney up to $327,000 for Cordova Villa. And this is in excess of the supplemental allocation, Title I allocation that we have already been allocating as a district. And so this definitely would be a windfall of funds that could do additional enhancements. Again, we're waiting on all the parameters, but it could be, funds for additional mental health services, intervention supports, class size supports, could be a slew of different things of need once they're identified. And it also could coordinate with our community schools programs that we're looking at, and maybe used also to enhance some of those services as well. So it's definitely an opportunity for these sites. There is obviously, anytime they create a new program with new funding, there's always a concern of stability, long-term stability of the funds, that these will continue, because you don't want to implement a program with that kind of dollars and not be able to continue those going forward. So, we're looking at the state because in the next few years, we do anticipate some tighter budgetary times for the state. And so to add a new program on top of everything else, we just want to ensure that they will continue that program. So that'll be something we keep an eye on as well.
Board President, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Just to
go ahead.
clarify, it sounds like if these schools are awarded that funding, that funding is specific to that school site?
It is specific to the site. It would be part of their single plan for student achievement. And then also, similar to the LCAP, they would have this additional component.
Yeah, great.
So.
Actually, who would, at the school site would decide how the money is spent? Or would that be the administration, or would that be the principal, the school site committee? How would that work?
So it's normally a collaborative nature. Obviously, the district and the board always has a final authority on hiring of staff or any of those things if that was what they want to do. But the process ideally is one where you get stakeholder feedback, normally through your site council, through that organization. That's part of your single plan. They approve the single plan. And this year we are implementing it so that the plans are done earlier this year for the following year. And so those people would have the discussion. The plan is then presented more or less to the executive cabinet for us to review, ensure it's in line with district standards and goals, staffing for HR, all of those pieces. And then what will ultimately happen is all of the SIPSA plans, single plans, come to the board for approval.
Okay.
Any questions on that particular pot? That's the biggest new pot of money relative to the budget. For the most part, everything else pretty much stayed status quo. A couple of things that are a positive highlight. Now, this is actually the 22-23 budget, but it's part of the 23-24 balancing of the budget, which was the governor originally had recommended significant cuts to 2 one-time pots of funds that we received in 22-23. And we shared, I shared with the board here our concerns about them reducing an allocation from a prior year's budget that had already been entitled. Because districts build their budgets off of what we assume is a final budget, and to come back and cut is a practice we would hope that would not continue to occur, because then how do you know you can trust your budget year to year if they can go backwards in time, right? And so we saw at the end of the day, both the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant and the Art, Music, Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant did not receive the cut as significant as what the last governor's proposal was in May. So governor's proposal was a 30% reduction in the learning recovery. It was going to go from about a $16 million allocation to a $10 million allocation for Folsom Cordova. So we were going to lose about $6 million. The end result is they only cut it about $1.1 million to $15 million, which is great. Art, music, instructional materials, same thing there. They were going to do a 50% reduction. They were going to go from about $12 million to $6 million, and instead they decreased it by about $2 million. So ultimately, we would have loved to receive the entire funding, but relative to what the governor's proposal was May, I think most districts are pretty happy, and we're happy with the situation with the funding. That will actually update when we close our books in September, you will see these finalized numbers. These are categorically restricted dollars, so you won't see it on the unrestricted side, this on the restricted side. Just so you guys know, the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, that's part of the funding that we're using for the TOSAs that we're using for all the new teacher induction, as well as some of the intervention staff, intervention supports, and the academic coaches are being paid out of some of those funds. And then the art, music, instructional materials, that pot we were holding. There is more flexibility with that because we can use it for operational purposes as well. We have some concerns about the state budget in the next few years. We could potentially use that to help shortfall there. Also, because we're still waiting on the Prop 28 funding, and I have that on the next slide, which is the voter initiative that passed that increases allocations to school sites for music and visual arts, right? Visual and performing arts. We wanted to see how those dollars would roll in. We still haven't seen those allocations because that might determine priorities of the remaining funds there, because those funds can be used for not just art and music, but instructional materials, operational costs, some other services. And so next steps for budget, we are deep in the closing the books. That will be for 22-23. That will be presented at September. Really, the big piece that will come out of that is looking at what our ending fund balance is what we finalized with what our expenditures are. And so that shows us how much money rolls over into the next year. Things to look at budget-wise for 23-24. Obviously, enrollment. First day of school was on August 8th. We also have a new impact of our new charter school, if there was any impact there. I will say the numbers we're looking at do look positive when it comes to our overall enrollment as a district compared to what we budgeted in June. I won't put out numbers at this point because we're still finalizing details, doing warm body counts, but I do think we have a positive enrollment growth over what we projected at adopted budget, which is a positive for us because we are looking at our current year ADA being the funding source. So if our ADA is higher, we should see additional revenues in this year. So that's good. Staffing, I think Dawn's going to speak a little bit later on about all of the hiring and staffing we're at, but we're feeling very positive, especially relative to some of our neighboring districts and some of the articles and stories you're hearing about the number of open positions out in the state and the country when it comes to teaching positions and support positions. So we're still looking at that. Obviously, that impacts the budget significantly. It's 85% of our budget is staff. So hiring those positions makes a big difference on how our budget comes together. Negotiations, we still have not finalized negotiations for 23-24, so that will be a big piece of the budget as well. And then Prop 28, I talked about that. We're still waiting on funds. And then the last one is October tax collection. We had shared before that taxes due to some of the flooding and storms for the state of California got pushed out till October. So we really don't know all of the state revenues, which is a big component of how the next few years will look. And how the ability to fully fund COLA or even this current year budget is built upon an assumption of high tax rate return in from two different main body sources. So it's very, I would say, relatively aggressive on the assumptions that the legislature used to balance the state budget. And so if those don't come in, there could potentially be deferrals of cash flow, some other things that then would potentially impact us as well that we have to take into account for. So next up, we have Budget Advisory Committee. We're going to start our Budget Advisory Committee meetings in December. I think these meetings are a great opportunity for folks to really do a deep dive to get into the inner workings of the components that really build our budget. And then you see December will be first interim, and then we come around for the cycle. And this is just the cycle for 23-24. As I shared, in September, we'll be closing the books for 22-23, but this will be the budget cycle for 23-24, and it loops back around. So, any questions?
Questions from the board?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Sean, I want to, actually, it's great news on the arts, music, discretionary block grant, because that had me a little nervous before when we had heard about it at our last CSBA conference. Question about the Prop 28 net funding. Are we going to be waiting until November for that as well? Or do you see that coming out from the CDE anytime soon? whom?
We think we're starting to get some language. Actually, Mindy Andrews had a meeting just last week with State Superintendent Tony Thurman and some other leaders in the VAPA community about some of the things we're needing, because we're needing clarity on what, there's an 80% requirement that we spend it on personnel. So what qualifies as personnel? If you're a small school or we have multiple schools and it's hard to get a full-time person if you only have $30,000, $40,000. And so, is there ability to either bring in consultants or vendors, or does it have to be a staffed employee, or can you do other ways of providing the service? So there are pieces like that we're still trying to understand. Folsom Cordova, especially on the music side, we have been really a one of the lead districts, I would say, in this area when it comes to the amount of programming that we have within the school day for music. And so it would be actually pretty hard for us to expand music and maybe in some of because you would have to eliminate other classes because there's just not enough instructional day, right? Or could we potentially do after school with it? Or, so we're trying to find out those particulars, because obviously we're very proud of our programs. We can definitely enhance it when there's an opportunity, but at the same time, we don't want to take away from something else to try to implement these funds. And so those are some of the questions that we have. And of course, allocation, we still don't know the allocations and how the school allocation can be used in coordination. For some of our smaller schools, they may need to, hire a position between 3 sites, and how would that work, the process? How do we track it between each school site? Definitely we can do these things, we just need clarity from the state. So we're waiting for the audit guide and the details on that.
So we'll definitely hear about it before we hear about the multiplier, the LC.
I would never say I know for sure what the state is going to do. So I will tell you, hopefully all of it will know.
I didn't get a guarantee from you right now.
I would hope by first interim we'll have a better plan. But the truth is when you're implementing something that's going to be $2-3 million program, I think is what we estimate Prop 28 to be in the district.
Right.
We want to go in with, both feet, knowing where they're going to land, how the program is going to do. Mindy's new position is one where she's really going to be focusing on these programs. And so we want to make sure it's a robust program. We hire the best staff. It's hard to hire staff mid-year. So really, I think what we're anticipating is we could do some preliminary rollout, but the truth is the program, the dollars for this program will probably be a 24-25 implementation, right? So we can start the year off with the full program. We have it built in instead of trying to bolt on to existing systems, that kind of type of thing.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Any comments from the public online? All right. I guess it's back to the board. Is there a motion to approve the 45 budget revision?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Motion by Mr. Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Merrill. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Melidor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, item C, approve certificated assignments under a variable term waiver for the 2023-2024 school year. Superintendent.
Yes, we have 4 teachers coming before the board today that we are requesting waiver requests. They represent CTE and ROTC, and the waiver waives, while they're still becoming certified in their training under their Certificate of Staff Development, it would waive the CLAD certification to teach English learners. So in order for CTC to act upon it, the board has to approve it first. All 4 of the teachers that are on this list have consented to the assignment.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Mr. President, if there's no comments from the public, these are pretty much routine items. If there are no questions from the board, I'd like to move forward with a motion.
I just have a really quick question. Are they required after receiving or working in this position to receive that certification?
Yes, what we're doing is giving them time to get their CLAD training.
Okay, thank you.
I do have to quickly ask, though, if there's any comments from the public. All right, hearing none. Motion by Mr. Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Larrett. Superintendent.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Melidor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item D, approve certificated assignments under a provisional internship permit for the 2023-2024 school year. Superintendent.
And this is also routine in nature for the most part, but we have two teachers that we are requesting board's approval for a provisional internship permit. And these employees meet the minimum requirements and require additional time as well to meet the subject matter competence needed to enter into an internship program. And both of these special education teachers have consented to this assignment.
Okay, questions from the board? Public? All right, is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Board Member Lofthouse. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Melchior. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Huey?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Melchior?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to agenda item 12, discussion. First one is the 2023-2024 district priorities and actions. Superintendent.
Yes, this is a chance to daylight with our board and our community. Our 4 focus areas or priorities for the 23-24 school year. And this is a compilation of areas that really overlap with our LCAP goals. We have 4 major LCAP goals, but they also represent feedback that we've received as we've done some empathy gathering with our employees at the site level and at the district level. And as we engage in, implementing the actions to support these priorities over the next year, we'll also be continuing to collect that feedback as we revise our next 3-year LCAP plan, which we'll be doing this spring for the 24 through 27 school year. But if we could bring up the graphic, we created a couple of graphics here that we thought might be helpful to just, visualize what we're all about. And of course, students are in the middle, as is equity, as is our vision statement, empowering all students to thrive through educational excellence. But our first priority is empowering student growth and success. Some of the actions that we will continue to implement are the focus on our vital signs, continued implementation of our professional learning communities, looking very closely at our attendance rates. We're in the midst of a 20-day attendance challenge right now. And on day 2, our attendance rates are much higher than they were a year ago. We still have work to do, but we are committed to that work, and we have staffing committed as well. And then also is our commitment as a district team to be customer service friendly to our school sites, to our staff, to our families, and to our community, all to help support student growth and success. And part of that is the measurement of the metrics. We'll see that in the LCAP goals as well. The second priority, partnering with students, families, and our community. This happens in many ways, and just last night we were hosting several families here for the backpack rollout and kind of our bash to welcome back all of our new families with a wonderful dinner and an opportunity to meet all the community resources that we had. That are supporting our families. That's just one example, and I want to thank Dr. Peace because she and our homeless and foster youth family teams have been doing a lot of work around that, as well as our community schools. We have 6 schools that are going to be implementing the community school model with funding, but all schools in Rancho Cordova will also be adopting that mindset. So that connection with our families, coming to a central location or a hub so they can be connected to resources and, being more customer service friendly to them as well, is part of our commitment with this priority, as well as continuing to support our advisory committees. We've grown some of the advisory committees that we have in different areas, and making sure that their voice is heard at the table as we continue to keep students at the forefront of that priority. The third district priority, fostering a diverse, inclusive, and thriving work environment. You've heard a lot of focus around the importance of not only recruiting in diverse places and locations and historically Black universities and colleges, but how do we retain the folks that we are recruiting? And again, through our empathy gathering, we found that we need to do more with supporting those folks that are new to our system, be it certificated or classified or administrative. So you'll hear a presentation from Mr. Ogden tonight, which is part 2 of our recruit, train, and retain our workforce. But that is, our workforce is an important key of, again, supporting all students in Folsom, Cordova. And then the last district priority, optimizing systems and a culture of innovation. That really isn't a priority you would see written out in an LCAP plan, but as we continue to grow as a district, it is a priority we want to keep at the forefront because now is the time for us to look at our systems to support our operations now, but into the future as well. And we were trying to minimize redundancy, whether that's in our data systems or trying to get at the front of the line for when we're going to hiring fairs and starting our staffing processes earlier, or looking at creative ways to better meet student needs. Again, through empathy gathering, our food service director found out that we had high school students not eating lunch. And the question was, why aren't you eating lunch? Every student in our district is eligible for a free lunch and breakfast meal. And the answers were, we don't have enough time. Well, why don't you have enough time? Because the lines are too long. Well, why are the lines too long? Because we don't have enough point of sales locations for students to get their meals in their lunch period time and get across campus back to their classes. So an innovative fix to that is to create more points of sales at our high school campuses, which we have implemented now for this year, and looking into food trucks as well. So again, trying to think outside the box as we continue to grow as an organization. So that's just a snapshot, but I wanted it, to share it and make sure that our board is aware, because you'll hear our reference to these 4 priorities. And again, as we come back and revisit our LCAP this spring to revise it for the next 3 years. And equity sits at the middle. Again, looking at our data that tells us, who our marginalized student groups are and how we raise all students so they're all crossing the line and graduating. And with that, we have a second graphic that we created too. And I'm kind of into the old-fashioned roadmaps that we used to have in the days when we didn't have phones and you'd have to go to AAA or the gas station to get a paper map to go from point A to point B. But this map shows that in Folsom, Cordova, the beginning of the map starts with students and the end of the map starts with students. So we meet and greet and we connect with our students and their families at the beginning of this journey. We have a vision statement and a mission statement that the board has approved that is our commitment to our students. Our LCAP goals, our priorities, our action plans are how we're going to help move all students towards the finish line, which is graduation. And that's just one of many finish lines that we know our students are preparing for in life. But that's the first milestone as they graduate from Folsom, Cordova. So we want all students prepared for their next steps. We believe the district priorities and action plans will help get us there. We want that clarity, we want that transparency, and we'll continue to fine tune them throughout the year as well.
All right. Questions from the board? From the audience? Yep. All right. Is there a motion?
It's just discussion.
Oh, it's just discussion, so no motion. Excellent. All right. So then if we're done with discussion, we will go to item B, which is update fencing criteria and project prioritization. Superintendent.
Yes, this is also an update and a discussion item summarizing the work of our District Safety Advisory Committee and the work that they've done over the course of this last year, really focusing on the safety, physical safety of our school sites and looking at specific criteria and metrics to determine, how we make decisions about perimeter fencing, surveillance cameras, revising board policies and so forth. So I'm going to ask Mr. Washburn to come up and talk about the criteria that was determined for fencing projects and then the list of fencing priority projects that we've have on the list starting this year.
Great, thank you. Good evening. Yes, the Safety Advisory Committee met several times during the last year. Locations out at Mitchell and a lot of safety items were covered. One of the things that was developed was the criteria for determining fencing projects. We did some surveys, we sent information out, and we have a lot of criteria that went out, and we prioritized that based on the responses received, and then the District Safety Committee took that information and created the criteria list, and from there, a criteria priority list. As you can see, the criteria determined were violent assaults from non-students, excessive trespassing, front of school, open to the visitors, maybe corralling people to the front area so they don't have access to classrooms and other areas within the campus. Incidents requiring law enforcement notifications, specifically related to something that would be for fencing, not something unrelated to a law enforcement issue that would be, not a fencing issue that could to fix the situation. And then vandalism reports, obviously a lot of vandalism, anything that would cause a lot of us to have to go out and repaint, do a lot of fixing of equipment and things like that. So the safety committee met several times, took the criteria. We based that on discussions and also personal experiences, discussions with administrators and staff, and we came up with the list, which is on the following page, the attachment, which is which sites would be in priority order. Cordova High School was determined to be the top priority. It was pretty much a unanimous decision based on some of the instances we had, the size of the campus, the openness to everything. So we focused a lot of attention on that. Next was Mitchell, Williamson, and as you can see on down the list, many sites have been fenced. Some sites are partially fenced. So some of these, if there's money comes in, there's some low-hanging fruit that we can go back and spend a little bit of money and completely fence off certain areas. Back 20 years ago, the main thing was try to keep sites open, but kind of funnel them towards the front entrance. It wasn't as much as security as it was as making sure that the people knew where the front office area was. There's some areas, and just increasing some of the fencing in certain areas will provide enough fencing. We have met with the Cordova High staff. We have walked it with the safety committee. We have a plan that was brought forth to the high school. They have approved it. The plan is brought forth to cabinet. Cabinet has approved the plan, and we're currently putting documents together to put it out to bid. We anticipate having enough safety funding to be able to fence the entire Cordova High School campus. Part of it would be including wrought iron fence along the front and then black vinyl fence around towards the back portions of it, 8-foot fence. And then having access to the office and to the counseling center. Also having some sliding gates that would work. We've also had to work with Sac Metro Fire Department to provide some improvements in there. They require certain requirements as well. So once we have all the plans put together, we'll put that out to bid, and we'll work with the staff during the school year and hopefully have that done within the next, hopefully by the end of the year. A lot of it depends on the bidding and the climate and the construction schedule. So in other safety features, I know it's not part of it, but we also have video surveillance at every single school. So cameras are provided at every school, multiple cameras. That is something that's been completed through the safety funding as well. So with that, I'd entertain any questions.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Matt, thank you so much, and I appreciate the fact that you have put Cordova at the top of the list. But I just need you to be a little more specific on the sliding gate. Is that going to be back by the culinary area, or where is that going to be? Because I'm not sure. I know there was discussion.
There's actually two
on that.
So there would be two before the culinary, right as you go past the council center. There would be a sliding gate there, and then on Lancer Lane by the pack over on that side, there would be one there as well.
So it's probably closer to where I think it's ASB or not ASB. Yeah.
Student Union.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would actually be right before that.
Okay.
It'd be further up before that. And we would have to have, card access to provide for that. So we also have that. And we're also providing that the office area would have locking doors, and they would be able to buzz people in and out as well.
Okay. And I'm assuming these plans, when they come out, that the board will be able to look at the diagrams and everything.
We have a draft plan now that we could put out.
Okay.
We could
if you will.
I know we talked with Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's all I had.
I have a question. So at school, it's kind of I'd say it's a talked about topic. Just yesterday, I had people coming up to me asking about the fencing and like what I thought about it, like completely unprovoked. And I give them my opinion. I'm pro fencing. I think it'll cut down on vandalism. It'll help our custodial management, like when they're cleaning it up, they don't have to clean up as much vandalism and things like that, and it promotes campus safety. My concern and other students' concerns is in the event of a very possible like occurrence that could happen here. If there's a school shooting, if there's any, is this gonna like limit student like ability to flee the campus? So if there's a shooter in the campus, if it's a student, is there any way for students to leave or evacuate the campus safely if they're in the bathroom when it happens and they're not in a locked classroom in a safe area? I'm just worried if there's only 2 entrances and exits, that's really easy to like cover, and I'm just worried for student safety and something that is a very real possibility, especially like today in this age.
That's a good question. We have to provide exiting. It's part of also access compliance issues. So the interior parts of the gate would be able to push open so people can't escape. The idea is to lock so you can't enter, but you'll be able to come out. And that's part of it, is putting screening around it so somebody can't reach around and do it. So wherever there's gates and access, there would be screening so you can't easily reach around and lock it. But you would be able to get out, but it's to prevent people from coming in. So good question.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Matt, if you would please confirm, where we're adding fencing, we'll be utilizing the exterior building walls wherever possible in place of the fencing. So we're not, fencing the entire property off to make it look institutional, correct?
Absolutely, and actually that tends to save money too, because you try to use your buildings as much as possible as fencing. And by doing that, it also aesthetically pleasing as well. Okay. And by putting it between buildings. So we try to do that as much as possible. Yeah.
Okay. And then, I just in general, I think we need to ask the question, what's the purpose of the fence? And I think that purpose of the fence has evolved over the years, and you alluded to that as well. But I don't think any height in fence is going to stop people from potentially going over the fence. It could be a somewhat of a deterrent, but I'm concerned about the 8 foot in height of fences. The goal of the fence is to basically direct people in the direction we want them to go in. And, even at Sutter Middle School, the fencing along East Bidwell in the front of the building is probably 5 feet at best. We didn't put an 8 foot fence there. I've never seen anybody jump that 5 foot fence. Again, it's directional, so it directs people to the entrances where we want them to go, in and out of. And then we've also added cameras to all the schools since we've been adding fences. So, the school sites have a better knowledge of who's on the campus and who's not, even the schools that are all fenced in. So, and then finally, Board Policy 1000, which we require the school sites to have at least one point of entry and exit that is left unlocked outside of school hours, so the public has the ability, the taxpayers have the ability to utilize the school grounds during non-school hours, whether it's after school or on weekends or on vacations. The purpose of having that 8 foot high institutional style fencing seems to be more archaic, that we don't need 8 foot fencing. And if we could decrease the size of the fencing, it's also going to save a significant amount of money in material. So I think we need to really analyze, do we really need 8 foot fencing, or would a 6 foot fence do, or a 5 foot fence do? Clearly we just did Sutter Middle School, probably 5 years ago, and we thought a 5 foot fence was just sufficient, and it was.
So there's a lot of thoughts on that, and you have to look at specific issues and specific circumstances as to why the fences are the height and what they are. We typically have been putting in 6-foot wrought iron fence are typically harder to climb. We've put no climb fence at Community Education Center, our community CLC. The type of fencing, the location, and what you're trying to do. Video surveillance cameras don't prevent people from coming on the campus quickly. That's typically for after you're seeing who was in the fight or who was on your campus. It's not preventing somebody from getting onto the site. And you're right, in the old days, it was to direct people to the right location. The issues that the site staff brought up at Cordova High was they had people coming on and they were fighting and they were coming on quickly and they were coming in from the other side. They were coming around locations. They needed to prevent somebody from getting to that campus. And the students, and frankly, how athletic a lot of them were, they were flying over those fences pretty quickly. They were pretty adamant about the height of the fence. And I was surprised too, because 6 foot was typically what we had, and in some places 4 feet. That was kind of the old days. And we started looking at other places. Mills actually has 8 foot. They have 8 foot in the interior part of their campus. Rosemont has 8 feet. Elk Grove has typically gone to 8 feet. So it's actually kind of going the other direction to provide maximum security in those areas. Now, how to make it look aesthetically pleasing and not look kind of penetratory style, that's what we want to concentrate on as well. So there's a kind of a fine line. I think Sutter, the issues we had there weren't the same issues we had at Cordova High, which aren't the same issues we may have at Cordova Meadows or anywhere else. So we have to look at it site by site. And based on the safety committee and the staff, 8 foot was the first thing that they said, because I was automatically going with 6 foot as well. But that was something that was a priority for them.
So this is not going to be a universal 8 foot standard across all school sites?
No.
All right. Because, I do think some people think that these fences are going to prevent vandalism. These fences will not prevent vandalism. It doesn't matter how much fencing you put in, you are never going to prevent vandalism. And keep in mind, we are unlocking the gates after school ends. So that the fencing is not going to prevent the vandalism that way either. They can just go right through the gates.
It's to deter it. And we have, at Oak Chan is a good example, once the fencing went in there, the vandalism decreased significantly. So we have some
Actually,
examples.
I would disagree with you on that one. The worst vandalism we've ever experienced on any of our campuses happened at Oak Chan after we put the fences up that had a locked gate. So
I guess the number of occurrences.
The number of occurrences decreased, but so my whole point was that the height of these fences were not going to prevent what we're looking at preventing. So, but I'm satisfied if the school site wants 8 feet and then that's fine. But I would hate to see 8 foot fencing installed at all of our elementary schools and the like. If there's a desire for it, okay. But ideally, I think that, the 6 foot fencing you've been putting in and even 4 to 5 in certain locations, I think have been more than sufficient.
Yeah, I think it'd be case by case.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
6 foot, 8 foot, another one of my favorite topics. At Cordova, in the front of the stadium, there was a portion of it that was 6 feet, the rest of it being 8 feet. When you were at a football game and there is a fight there, they go right over the top of that 6 foot. So, and it had been taken down there because we had some work done at the school, and when the contractor put it back up, they put a 6 foot. It just recently got replaced with the 8 foot specifically because of those issues. I mean, it is nearly impossible to control some of those areas at the 6 foot level. So, I mean, I would be a very strong advocate for the 8 foot, just watching them I'm standing there and watching them just bounce right up over the top of it, out of it from a safety standpoint, so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, public.
Thank you.
No? All right, next item on discussion is staffing updates. Superintendent.
Yes, we shared part one at our last board meeting of where we're at with recruitment, training, and retention. And since June 15th, we've been really busy in the Human Resources Department and recruiting a lot of new employees to Folsom, Cordova. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Ogden to share the updates since that last board meeting.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to give the board an update today on our progress When I started this presentation at the last board meeting, I talked a lot about recruiting. I'm going to jump to retain today and talk about some of the things we're doing to retain, and I'm going to end the presentation giving an update on where we actually are in staffing today. If we go to the second slide, I do want to follow our priorities, and so priority 3 is foster a diverse, inclusive, and thriving work environment, and that's our focus in HR. And I did share this last time with the board, but this is a national statistic. Over 50% of our new teachers are actually leaving the profession within 5 years. I shared these are the 3 topics that we're focusing on in HR. And today we're going to look at retention. And when we look at retention, in order to retain teachers, we want to make sure we have a safe working environment. I have some stuff about safety here, but really Matt covered a lot of it just now. So I also want to talk a little bit about what we've done to keep our pay competitive over the last couple of years, what we're doing to establish a culture of staff being valued, and also how we're staying connected with our students, our schools, and our community. In the last couple of years, we've had a safety committee. That safety committee has created a lot of different proposals and recommendations for the board. I just listed some of them here. And also here, I want to highlight on this slide something we really haven't talked about recently, but I think it's very important. We use a technology called Raptor. So every time someone comes on campus, if you're a visitor or a volunteer, you have to be screened through the Raptor system. The Raptor will immediately identify someone that's, by Megan's Law, sexual predator on campus. And that immediately that sends an email to the principal, and so we stop them from being on our campus. So that's one of our protocols. It also is a management system for our volunteers. This slide you're familiar with. I've shown this, but actually I first had access to this slide probably about 3 years ago. And Scott Meyer used this when we did our very first safety meeting at Folsom High School in the library. When we did that, the total full-time employees that support safe working conditions, both physical and emotional, that number was 260. It's up to 304. So there's over 40 different positions that in one way or another support emotional or physical safety at our schools. So that's a huge investment over the last 3 years. And I also wanted to point out, what we've done to keep our pay competitive. And so this is a bunch of hyperlinks. If you want to see details, you can go to the webpage, and under HR for each bargaining unit, we have a list of all of these different documents. Rather than just read them all right now, I'm going to ask you to go to that website if you're interested and click on them. But you should know that last year we did give a 8% pay increase to all of our teaching staff, all of our certificated staff, with an additional 3% to our special ed teachers. So our special ed teachers had an 11% increase in pay last year. On top of that, we did give a $2,500 bonus to all of our certificated employees, and we did increase our contribution to their benefits. The prior 2 years, in 21-22, we increased pay by 3%, and in 2021, we increased by 3.5%. So if you add them all up, if you're a special ed teacher, we had a 17.5% increase. If you're a regular ed teacher, we had just under a 15% pay increase over the last 3 years. And you'll also notice these MOUs focus on areas of need. So we've always struggled to hire speech and language pathologists in our district, as every district has, as there's a shortage nationwide. We worked with our bargaining unit to create a unique salary schedule. This year is the first year, and I've served in this position for 7 years, 7th year. This is the first year that I have started the school year and not had a vacancy for a speech and language pathologist. So this was a very productive MOU. We also changed how we are doing our work calendar and salary schedule for our Air Force ROTC. Again, that is a position that's gone unfilled in almost 7 years, and so we're able to fully staff the Air Force ROTC program, Rancho Cordova High School. So these are us working with our bargaining unit collaboratively and being able to create some language to focus. The last one I would like to highlight is nurses. There's a shortage of nurses. We all hear that. We changed how we pay our nurse practitioners so they can come in and do clinics on the weekends. Classified, same thing. We provided raises of 8% to the whole group last year. We actually gave another 5% for ranges 1 through 29. So they received a 13% raise. And then there were targeted groups that we looked at. For example, our food service workers, where we gave them an additional increase in salary. Our STARS workers, our after-school programs or ELOP programs, we're still struggling to fill those positions. We did give them a raise on top of the raises that we gave the bargaining unit. And also, as we shared last year, there's a shortage of bus drivers last year as there is this year. So we gave an increase to bus drivers above and beyond. So if you look at these increases in salary, it's pretty significant for some targeted areas last year for classified employees, and it has made a difference in hiring. We also have a multi-year look at this, and so if you look at the 2 prior years, we had a 3% and a 3.5% increase. So in the last 3 years, there has been 8 plus 3 plus 3 for everybody, but some targeted areas got higher than that, including the bottom half of our salary schedule got an extra 5% last year. When we talk about a culture of being valued or having employees who feel valued, we work together with our bargaining units to create some MOUs that really work around working conditions. And so I did list quite a few MOUs that we did collaboratively with our bargaining units, where they said, you know, it's important for our team to feel valued as teachers, for example. And one way they feel valued is not having to do yard duty. So we actually staff yard duty with classified employees rather than teachers, and teachers are allowed to use that time for other purposes. Last year, we passed a common planning time MOU with our bargaining unit so that they have time weekly to work together in their PLC teams. We also added some professional learning day or professional development days this year that were voluntary. So there's quite a few different initiatives that we work with our teachers and our certificated employees to make them feel valued. And on the same note, we do that with our classified employees too. Where the classified feel valued is sometimes they say, you know, if you look at my job description, it really is not what I'm doing. The work is not the same as this job description was work which was written 20 years ago. So we've looked at a lot of classified positions over the last few years, and we've rebenched or changed those to fit the work they're doing. And so you'll see a whole lot of MOUs about new job descriptions or reclassifications, where we're working with bargaining unit members so they're being compensated for the actual work they're doing, and the job description fits the actual work that they're doing. We also, I did want to highlight that we created some professional development, which we've heard a couple of people talk about today, for classified employees. We had an instructional aid professional development recently, as well as one for our campus monitors and our yard duty professionals. And lastly, I think it's really important that people feel connected if we want them to retain employment in our district. So we try and do things to make our teachers feel connected to students, to each other, to the community. And these are a couple of examples of where we worked with our bargaining unit on some MOUs to give them time to connect either with their colleagues, with students, or with the community. And we also have some things that we've done, or some initiatives we've done with our classified employees to help them connect. One of which is Rob, who came earlier and spoke, the president. We're going to change how we work with Rob and give him some more time, which is release time, so he can go out and work with the classified employees and help as a leader work with them, because currently his release time is rather limited in our contract language, and we're going to open that up. So that will be coming to the board this year on giving Rob some more time to work with his team. Okay, so this snapshot of where we are on hiring, this is what I was going to end on, is from a week ago. So I submitted this packet a week ago. I've got some updates on it. So when last week when we were looking at it in HR, and I think Panu's here still, Panu's been working really hard. Panu's our new executive director in HR, leading our team, and he has done an amazing job of leading our team to get these positions filled. He led the team many nights in the last couple of weeks where they were here late at night working, and on Saturdays trying to get teachers in classrooms and classified staff filled. So if we look at this, a week ago we had 5 vacancies. I'm happy to say the navigator position is filled. We have a teacher in there who's an intern. The English position is, we redid the schedule, so that is no longer a vacancy. The Spanish position on the bottom, we actually are using iTutor again, and I got an email from the principal saying she's very excited because it's the same iTutor program we used there last year. We had a substitute teacher who was in there all last year as a proctor. She's in there again this year. She's bilingual, and she's actually now in an intern program. So we're working with her to get her in an intern program so that she can teach that class. So she'll be taking it over from iTutor, but we have that up and running. So that really leaves us with 2 classrooms, one at White Rock and the other at CLC. And both of those, we do have a substitute teacher in place and additional support. So Panu and team did a great job on that. In classified, I want to go back to this real quick. In order to get here, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what HR has done. So if we go back and we look at from February, when we start hiring in February till August 4th, we hired 191 certificated employees. So some of these employees we hired quit before they even started. Some we hired and they worked the end of last year, but 191 certificated employees. We hired 89 subs in this period of time. We also hired 126 certificated people to teach summer school. And we hired 7 managers, certificated managers. So all said and done, our certificated team hired 421 certificated employees since February. So the next thing I have is classified. Now, classified is even a bigger lift. As you all know, we have more classified employees than certificated. We have about 1,000 certificated, about 1,800 classified. When I put this together, the numbers of openings haven't changed that much, but what has changed is we have a lot of people in process of being hired in the last week. So we pretty much have filled our school clerks and health assistant positions, our elementary para positions, and our campus monitors. We have 2 in progress of the 5 that we needed a week ago. We actually have 10 of the 9 openings in progress of bilingual, because since that I published this, somebody resigned, and so we're actually hiring more than we had posted 2 weeks ago. Food service workers, right now we have about 16 people in the queue, and we've got 16 people that we have openings for. If we look at our mod severe paraprofessionals, we have 41 openings still, and we have 6 in process. Yard duty, we have 64 openings. We have about 20 yard duty in process right now. And then expanded learning, which is our most challenging positions to fill. It's a 3-hour position after school doing daycare. We have 129 positions. The result of that is we have waiting lists to get in that program throughout the district. We're doing our best to hire there. Currently, we have 12 in process. And to attack this challenge, what we're doing is we're hosting a hiring fair on the 17th. We're going to do it here. The last time we hosted a hiring fair here, we hired over 100 people. Again, we're going to hire with an incentive. So the word's out. If you refer somebody and they write your name on an application, if you're a certificated or classified employee, you get $250 if they make it through probation, and that employee gets $250. So we're incentivizing our staff to refer people to our hiring fair on the 17th. We've got a great team from the district office that's going to get together and do this. A bunch of principals have volunteered to come in. So what we'll have happen is people will come in on the spot. They'll apply. We'll interview them. We will fingerprint them at no cost. We will do TB screening here. And so by the end of the interview, they could actually have a job offer that's conditional on them passing the fingerprints or something else. But we'll be hiring on the spot on that day, and hopefully, like the last one, we'll be able to hire about 100 people, right, Panu?
Absolutely, if not more.
Okay. So Panu ran some numbers also on what we've done since February. And in classified, we've hired 173 classified employees, 2 managers. We've hired 47 yard duty supervisors. We've hired 111 classified subs. That's huge. We had very few subs last year. So we've hired more subs since February than we had at the beginning of the year last year. We hired 38 coaches, and we've hired for summer school, 324 classified employees for summer school. So we've hired almost 500 classified employees since February. So this has been a daunting task for the HR department. And one of the things you'll notice as you go onto our campuses, there's a lot of new faces. So please welcome our new employees and encourage them to stay, because we definitely don't want to have to hire this many people next year. So I do want to give another plug, though. On the 17th, we're having a hiring fair here. We're going to do it from 4 to 7 o'clock. So if you know anybody looking for a job, send them our way. We're hiring on the spot. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions from the board? Mr. Clark?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Great job on, recruiting and getting these classified and certificated employees in. I know that you mentioned, and on page 4, that we were going to recruit, and I know that the HBCU recruiting is happening when?
I can get you the dates.
Okay, yeah, if you can let me know. I think
we have 2 different times we're going. We're going to go fall and we're going to go in spring.
Yeah, I think I signed up for the fall.
Okay.
Spring, it's not going to happen. But so I mean, great job. I think we're on the right track. I did have a question about the job fair. How are you disseminating that information, getting it out to folks?
We've got a marketing plan just like we did last time, where we're using Blackboard, so it goes through the schools. We have flyers that have gone out, and so Angela in the communications department is stepping into that space and helping us market
I'm
it.
going to do a shameless plug, and have you all used, because I know you partnered with Greater Sacramento Urban League with their job fair. Have you sent that information out to them at all?
We done that? Yeah, we definitely could do that.
I think that would be good, because I know that as we are coming more into the Rancho Cordova area, I think it'd be great for our employment development department to have that information, especially the families that we do serve in Rancho Cordova, to get that information, and we can actually get them prepared too as well.
We'll do. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Other questions?
Just a comment. I mean, those numbers are, even though you put them in context, it's almost impossible to realize what you guys have done in the last 6 to 9 months here. So thanks for you and your team working hard on that. I'm thinking 2 vacancies in our certificated group. That's, compared to last year, that is outstanding. Hard to believe.
If you look at our surrounding districts, no one is at this point. So
Yeah. So, thanks for all your hard work. I'm sure it's been a lot of long nights and weekends.
Its HR team has worked very, very hard. We've got a great staff up there, and if you're ever in the building during the day, come up and say hi to them. They're all real hardworking, and I really appreciate the work they do and all the time they put in the last couple of weeks, especially working long nights and coming in on Saturdays. Really appreciate it.
And Don, just to confirm, even our lowest level, entry level, part-time classified positions, we pay higher than minimum wage, correct?
That's correct, $2 over. The yard duty are $2 over minimum wage.
All right, so that's another thing to point out to the public, that FCUSD pays at least $2 over minimum wage. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right, any comments from the public? Nope. All right, so that finishes our discussion items. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We have one more. Item D, which is a first read, Board Policy 5141.52, Suicide Prevention. Superintendent.
Yes, this policy came before our policy subcommittee on June 5th. We reviewed it. The major revisions in this policy are addressing education and training and how the referral process works, as far as working with our staff and our families. And the highlighted sections in green reflect changes that are a result of our federal program monitoring review, which is an audit of a lot of our different categorical programs. And the auditors found that we needed to add additional language into our policy to make it readable and understandable to parents and to students as well, from an elementary level on up. So The highlighted sections, again, speak to the referral process, training and education, especially at the elementary level, which we didn't have in our policy before. I want to thank Kate Hazarian for her work on this policy. She delighted it with our subcommittee back in June, and maybe you can go a little deeper into the additional parts that are specific to the elementary student and family population.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, a change in legislation had happened about 1.5 years ago, saying that we needed to add a section to the policy that is readable for a kindergartner through a 6th grader. So you'll see that the language is a little different than you might find in an ordinary policy. Also, CSBA has not come out with a model policy for us, and that is why when it was updated in March, it needed to be updated again now. The model policy from the state is 29 pages long. So we did the best we could with our subcommittee to be able to hone that down. Prior to COVID, there was a practice of our mental health teams going out to school sites and doing specific instruction for teachers on recognizing signs of suicide. While all of our staff is trained through public school works, we think resurrecting that practice of going out and doing in-person presentations to our staff is warranted. So we are working on updating our slide deck and putting together a schedule for schools to sign up for that training. And I would say in our district, we have a robust mental health support team through our clinicians, but also our school psychologists, our nurses, and our counselors. And they're all a part of making this policy come to life. Also, we needed to provide proof through FPM of what our curriculum is for students in helping to teach them skills for emotional wellness, and really want to call out Dr. Pease and the work on second step implementation and base education at high school. That is our core curriculum for teaching our students about emotional wellness and supporting them. So I'm here to answer any questions and appreciate the time.
Any questions?
If I can,
Yes.
if I may, I appreciate that explanation. It is unusual in a policy, the language in here, and does sort of read more like the action plan for the policy.
Yes, it does.
Was that, I understand it was because we had that audit and this new legislation that requires we put this in here.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of a suggestion of how we do that, or did we think that this would be the best way to address the audit?
So we were directed to another school district that had a policy that was updated and passed Education Code 215 requirements. And that's where we were pointed to look at best practices. And then we modified it to fit Folsom Cordova Unified's culture from there. So with FPM, it's important that we meet all of the different requirements that they have. So there are things in here we probably would have put in the AR, but it was required to be a part of the BP.
Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds good. Thank you for working on it. And again, thanks for that explanation, because it is a bit strange to read through at first.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, public comment? All right, I guess we are finished with that item.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to item 13, information, modernization and new construction updates, August 2023. Superintendent.
Yes, well, you've heard a lot of how the district operations have been busy throughout the summer, different departments, and it's no different in our modernization and new construction updates. Matt has put together a pretty specific report of all the project updates, and it's school by school. He's given background information, also, who's responsible, the task, the status. It's very informative. And Matt, I want to thank you and your team and Jerry and all of our project managers, because I know you've been busy all summer on these projects, as well as the grounds projects that we heard from Rob Korn earlier tonight to make sure our campuses are looking great. But it is there for reference unless there's any specific questions or you want further information at a future meeting.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but yeah, I appreciate you putting this together, Matt. It does give such a huge scope of all the work that you're doing. So it's really helpful for me to look through. Oftentimes at the end of these projects, I'm not sure kind of what we've put into them. So this was very helpful to look through.
All right. And Even though it's information, I'll open the public comment. Hearing none. All right. That will take us to agenda item 14, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent.
Well, it's a pleasure to have Matthew and Van on board as our two newest student board members, and very excited for hearing your voice as part of this governance team, and also supporting you in the training that you're going to be doing. And I'd shared some CSBA training for student board members that's coming up, and both of them jumped on that opportunity and they're signed up for training. So we'll continue to offer those opportunities as we look at continuing to amplify our voice in the Civic Learning Summit, as our two student board members did last year. I'm sure we'll continue that footprint as well with your leadership, and then being the voice of our students in all of Folsom and all of Rancho Cordova. So no small task, but I know you are both up to the challenge and you're off to a great start. So we welcome you to the team. Again, I just wanted to give a shout out for the back to school bash that we did for our foster youth and homeless families last night, and all the community resources that were here. It was a great way to, again, connect our families to the resources they need, whether it's, physical needs or social emotional well-being or free books or a new Chromebook, a free Chromebook, mobile app, device. I mean, there were a lot of resources that our students had access to and that they received last night. So I think a great way for our students to start school and not feel like they're missing some of the basics that, some of our students have and some don't have. So trying to close that gap too. As you saw tonight, you have a copy of the governance norms book. We talked about that at our study session, so there's a copy for each of our board members there. And then also for you this evening, I want to thank our communication and community engagement team, because they've put together an annual report. Again, it's a summary of accomplishments with some data and statistics that represent the work that they do. Sometimes we don't see everything behind the scenes, but they do an awful lot behind the scenes with three people, Angela, Jamina, and Robin. They do an incredible job. So when you have a chance, take a look at their annual report as well. And we're off to a great start to the new school year. It's just great welcoming back our students and our staff and our families, and you can feel the positive energy all throughout our campuses. So I want to thank all of our leadership who put their foot forward first at our charge session and really set the stage for a successful opening to the school year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That takes us to board member reports. We normally start with the students. Do you want to go first today?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Way to dive in. We'll start with board member Melajor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm more than grateful for all the warm wishes, and I can't wait to represent more than 7,000 secondary students as the Folsom Student Board member. And as a representative, I will continue to advocate for these equitable student policies to promote a welcoming environment for all students in FCUSD. I'm also looking forward to discussing some imperative policies on this board regarding the dress code, phone usage, and the recent district split, among many others. So once again, I appreciate all the warm wishes, all the warm welcomes from everyone here. And to the FCUSD students and faculty, I wish them a happy school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Merrill.
Hello again. I'd just like to thank everyone who helped me be here, everyone who has welcomed me. I'm looking forward to representing all of my Rancho Cordovan students and my peers, and to serving you all as the student board member for this year. I'm eager to gather student opinion and present it all to you in order to better our district, for our teachers, our faculty, and our students, especially. That's it. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Let's see. Board member Lofthouse.
Just wanted to say welcome back to school to everybody. I look forward to visiting schools in the next few weeks. I have a stack of books to read to students. So I have that list already started. I'm excited for that. Welcome, Matt and Van. I look very forward to working with you guys this year and hearing your voice. And Van, just so you know, Mr. Maroon was also my teacher. So we'll really age him. And then also I look forward to seeing the 4 district priorities in action this year. So that's it.
All right. Board Member Clark.
Thank you, and it's pretty lengthy, and again, I apologize as I'm trying to get used to this retainer put in. Welcome to our new student board members. I look forward to working with you. I've already had a taste of working with this young man last Friday. I hope that our staff had a wonderful break and time to relax and recharge over the summer, but I know, Don, you and your team was working throughout the summer, and it's greatly appreciated for what you do. As for me, I spent the summer attending conferences and doing my duties as a CSBA director and visiting other board members in other counties and throughout the state. One of the main concerns I had was hearing from these board members was the state of our state budget. How it may get worse next year, and I don't want to spread any doom and gloom, but it is the way that it is, and hopefully it'll have an upturn instead of a downturn. Which brings me to another subject. I thank the board for approving the electives for AB 101 and the ethnic studies. However, even though I'm in favor of that, with Assembly Bill 101, the funding is not guaranteed. So I'm going to be advocating that throughout the state with our local assembly member to make sure that we have funding to sustain that program so we can continue to have ethnic studies. So I know that our CSBA Board of Directors will be meeting at the end of September. I will be kind of pressuring them to put pressure on our lawmakers to make sure that we have funding for that. I want to thank the superintendent for inviting us to the leadership charge session on the 26th. I love the priorities, and I want to say that we are making connections. But we also have to look at our organizational health. It was great to see our returning admin and meet our new staff. I'd also like to thank the superintendent for inviting us to the welcome back address last Friday, where we heard welcoming remarks from our superintendent and our president. Weren't you out of the country? Or were you?
No, I was in the state.
You okay?
I was just remote.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you were like somewhere Italy or something, like, I don't know. Because it's like, how is he doing that? Or why is he up so late or whatever? But I really enjoyed the keynote address and charge it to my head, not my heart. I can't remember his name.
Sam Drazen. Yeah.
Got it. And he just talked about belonging and building relationships, and that's what I'm all about as a board member. I've been doing it since 2016. It's all about building relationships, not only with our teachers, our admin staff here, but it's important to build relationships with our students. After that, I had the opportunity to, I took the day off, and I went out and I visited Rancho Cordova Elementary, Williamson Elementary, Peter J. Shields, Riverview STEM, Cordova Meadows, Cordova Lane, Cordova Gardens, Mills, Mitchell, and Cordova High to personally welcome them back, wish them a great new school year. And then actually I got to hang out with this young man at Cordova and give a little pep talk to the incoming freshmen in their evening or their afternoon orientation. I do apologize to the other schools that I missed, but for me personally, I plan on stepping it up this year on the normal. I usually visit the schools 3 times a year. I think this year it'll probably be 4 or 5 times. But when I do that, I want to spend more time in the classroom, like a board member Lofthouse said, reading and engaging with our students. I just want to continue to make those connections. And this is an open invite to the rest of my colleagues, and including our student board members. If you all want to hang out with me and go visit schools, the invitation is there. It's a fun time, especially with the kinders, because they ask a lot of questions even at their young age. On Tuesday, the first day of school, myself and board member Lofthouse had the opportunity to hang out with some parents out in Folsom. Of course, they were ecstatic that their kids were back at school. But there were a few things that were thrown at me that kind of caught me off guard, and that was the grad walk, which has been a tradition. I think before I got on the board, I actually had an opportunity to go to one grad walk out at Vista in 2017, and I really enjoyed it because it was an opportunity for students to go back to their school of origin, their elementary school, their middle school. And I know it made the teachers proud to see those students in their cap and gown walking through their campus, and it also meant something for our younger students to say, hey, that's going to be me in 4 years or 5 years or whatever. But what I was told is that it's not going to happen this year. I want it to happen, and I think before any of you all got on the board, I think I made a comment that, heck, I'd like to see that over at Folsom High in Cordova to have a grad walk. But I think we're going to need cooperation from everybody, including our board, our staff, and teachers and parents to make this work. So hopefully we can make this happen. Hopefully we can bring it up and talk about it and see how it would work out if there's a cost associated. I just think it needs to happen, especially in Rancho Cordova. Yesterday, I did have the opportunity to hang out here at the ESC with the Foster Youth Celebration. It was a great program. I learned so much about the services that we are offering as far as case management, advocacy, transportation, community resources, post-secondary support. And the neat thing that came out of it, not only the backpack giveaway, but as the superintendent said, I mean, free, what do you call it, the notepads for the kids, the electronic thingies, what do you call them? Chromebooks. No, not were they Chromebooks, or they were tablets? But it was great for those students to get that, as well as the middle school and high school students to get phones. And through the partnership with T-Mobile, they don't have to pay anything. Of course, it's restricted to some things. I mean, they can't get on there and watch the, what do you call that, TikTok thing or whatever. But I think it was just great for them to have those devices. I want to thank David Stone. I know he's not here, and his ETIS department for putting that together. And I also want to give kudos and thanks to Dr. Peace and her team for putting this together. It was a great opportunity. I actually saw some students that I knew from Cordova, former and current students that were foster youth and that are doing quite well. Last school year, we focused on partnerships with, Mama Earth Healing, IRT, Blessings in a Backpack, but I hope we can go in a same direction this year. And I would love to hear from our community-based programs, quite honestly. Like Folsom and Rancho Cordova Heart and how they're working with our homeless students. Our mock program, which is a phenomenal program. I know Mr. Mayor did a great podcast sharing about the mock program. I was totally impressed by that. But maybe he can give us an update on what they're doing as far as working with at-risk youth, Rancho Cordova. We'd love to hear from Hands for Hope. Love to hear from the Folsom Cordova Community Partnership and their school readiness program. I don't think they've ever done a presentation since I've been with the board or since I've been employed by them. But they do have a school readiness program. I'd like to see where it is right now and how many families they're serving. And then also Folsom's Hope with their Lunch Buddy program. I know they work in partnership with us here at the district. I'd like to get an update on how that's going and how the board can support. And last but not least, it would be great to hear from our PTSOs or PTOs or PTAs or whatever PTs are out there with our parent organizations on campus. One of the things that I like to do is go to those meetings, and of course they suck me in to being a member, so I think I belong to all of them. But it'd be great to hear from those parents and hear their concerns or hear what they're doing in their schools as far as supporting our teachers and students in activities. So hopefully we get them on the agenda from time to time to hear from them. Last but not least, it's that time of the year, and I wanted to thank Peter Maroon for the schedule. I have it set, so my Fridays are booked solid for the football season. Even the away games, there will be a couple that I'll be going to support our team. So go Lancers, go Eagles, and go Bulldogs. And I'm sorry it was so lengthy, but thank you.
All important stuff. Let's see, Board Member Larrett.
Wanted to thank our grounds and facilities crew for their hard work over the summer. Comments constantly they were getting from outside people coming on campuses for events is like how beautiful our grounds look and how well maintained they are. So really wanted to thank them for that and all their hard work on that. Wanted to also thank the communications department. They did an amazing job on our first day rollout. There was so many articles in the Sacramento Bee and on the news and everything like that. And just want to thank them for all their hard work and all the positive communications that we have out about FCUSD. It's always like nice to be on the good side of things. So appreciate all that hard work. I did get to go to Eugene, Oregon, and went to the Junior Olympics. And we had 15 kids from the Rancho Cordova Track Club who made it to the Junior Olympics. And it was pretty cool because at one point there was a split screen and we had hammer on one side and steeplechase on the other side, which are very unique things to have at a high school. And we have both. We're one of those few high schools that have both that have been provided by the city of Rancho Cordova and FCUSD. And it was pretty cool because we had a Rancho Cordova Track Club and the hammer and one that was on the steeplechase. So I don't know that any other club probably in the United States could say that that probably happened at once, especially in two such unique events. We did have one of our Mitchell students coming fourth in the steeplechase, which is pretty awesome considering they'd only been doing it for a month and become an All-American. So that's pretty awesome. So it's nice to see that these investments are already paying off very quickly in opportunities for our students. I'm anticipating that we will have many students over the next coming years be able to get some very unique scholarships in those events. So wanted to thank all the staff and for FCUSD support in that and their continued support of the programs. And wanted to thank our HR. That's an amazing accomplishment. And I know you guys have had a heavy lift over the summer. So thank you for your work in that. That's it.
All right. Board Member Hui.
Thank you. So also wanted to congratulate Matt and Van. Great to have you here. It's good to already be hearing your voices tonight. So thank you for what you're going to bring. Don, I know I already said thank you and congratulations for all this hard work. 150 new teachers is amazing. I did want to just mention both you and so many other people that have not only hired those teachers, but have been really busy putting in a program to support those teachers that you mentioned in your presentation tonight. So I'm hopeful that that will do a lot of good. And I know a lot has been put into it. So thank you. And the last thing, I just want to recognize Dr. Kaligian, during your presentation on the 4 priorities, I didn't comment on it when you were presenting, but I really appreciate the visual and where we're headed with that. I was thinking as you were talking, it's so easy to get lost in all of this because there's so much going on all the time. So I think that will be really helpful for us to look to and continue to have in front of us. Is really helpful for me. So thanks for you and your team for putting that together. Thanks.
All right. Well, welcome to the 2023-2024 school year, and special welcome to both Matt and Van. The thank yous really go all around. I mean, I think sometimes maybe the public doesn't recognize all the work that takes place over the summer. Some it's more obvious, our wonderful facilities, and I drove by Sandra de Gallardo the other day, and it did look like a brand new school with a fresh coat of paint on it. But there's also, some of the less visible things that staff do to get ready for the school year. So, and then, certainly HR, did a phenomenal job in getting us ready for, at least on the human capital side, for the start of the school year. So, but I just want to, thank all our employees for everything they do for the school district, that which is readily apparent and seen in some of those secret heroes that, they do a lot of work behind the scenes, and I want to thank them as well. Let's see. I also want to thank Matt. Matt, thank you very much for the signage. We got some signage up on the school facilities that are currently fenced in. And I just want to, highlight that to the members of the public, that each school site has one gate that has a sign on it, and the sign reads, the outdoor recreational areas at this facility are accessible to the public during non-school hours. It goes on to read that FCUSD reserves the right to lock the gates without prior notice pursuant to Board Policy 1000, which is the policy I had mentioned earlier. But I think that's a great way to communicate to the public that barring any issues, the public do have access to the taxpayer-funded facilities, the outdoor facilities, to be able to utilize. And I have to say, over the summertime, a huge shout out to Mangini Ranch Elementary. I was driving my 87-year-old mom around, showing her, who had recently moved to Folsom, showing her the community south of Highway 50 in Folsom. And it was a late summer afternoon. Gosh, it was probably 6:30 or 7. And as we were driving by Mangini Ranch, if there were 100 people on the school playground in the fields, I may be understating it. I have never seen such community use of a school facility before, not only after school hours, but over the summertime. I actually even saw someone with a picnic blanket out, and they were eating dinner. And that's the way it should be. I mean, we have these wonderful facilities, and it really warmed my heart to see that. So, and it's a great, the fact that our schools are community centers for our entire community. But thank you for that. I know that took a little bit of work to get those signs made and installed, so I appreciate that. Let's see. Earlier this week, I did swing over to Sutter Middle and had a conversation with Principal McFall, and I also had looped in via cell phone was Principal Daniels from Folsom Middle. I just wanted to hear, how was the first day of school? Actually, it was the second day, the first and second day of school as it related to the new cell phone policy. I heard very promising remarks from both principals who, indicated that it was very smooth implementation, smoother than they thought perhaps it was going to be, and heard some very positive comments coming back from not only the teachers. I think one had remarked, I forgot what it was like to teach a class of students that were paying attention. And so that was wonderful. But even the students, there were, I guess, the student engagement and conversation at lunchtime is something that they hadn't seen at the middle school campuses in quite some time. I do plan on getting over to both Mills and Mitchell, probably maybe end of next week, to see how it's going there as well. But it's the start of the school year, so it's obviously wait and see if it's sustainable and how it's going throughout its implementation. And then finally, and I was not aware of this, and thank you for raising it, Chris, about this grad walk. I am a huge fan of the grad walk as well, and I think the grad walk started at Vista. It took a while for it to catch on at Folsom High. It caught on at Folsom High, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I would love to see that continue, and I'd be curious to understand why we're having conversations that it's not going to continue. So I just want to publicly say I agree with Board Member Clark that it really is a wonderful event, and it should continue. And if Cordova High is not doing grad walk, I think they should. So it should be all of our high schools. That's my remarks for this evening. So. All right, that takes us to agenda item 16, advanced planning. The next, let's see, the next board, actually we have a couple board meetings coming up. We have a special board study session bond meeting on Monday, August 21st, 2023. Anybody who's interested in facilities, interested in new facilities, upgrade facilities, and potentially how the bonds interact with that. That's the type of meeting that you would be welcome to attend, and you would probably find it very interesting. So encourage the public to attend that if they're available. And then our next regular board meeting is on Thursday, August 24th. You have the 12-month calendar there for your reference. And then we have our suggested future agenda items, which are listed there. And are there any additional items at this point that any of the board members would like to add to the future agenda item list? Nope. The one item that I would like to, or I'd love to hear maybe a presentation on, is the possibility of adding an ROTC program in the city of Folsom, either at Folsom High or Vista del Lago. We have a great Air Force ROTC, junior ROTC program at Cordova High. I know a number of students in Folsom do go on to the military, and I think having perhaps a military program in one of the Folsom high schools might help our students that are interested in a military career, and maybe potentially even looking at a different branch. Obviously, Cordova High is Air Force. Maybe we take a look at what's the possibility of either Army or Navy potentially as an ROTC program. But I'd just be kind of curious, just in general, how do you go about starting one, and maybe is there an interest? Maybe there isn't an interest, but anyway. I guess I need to see if there's at least two other board members that would entertain that on a future agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have a quick follow. Are we finished with the discussion on the credits for athletics? Or is that going to be coming back to us at all, or?
For PE?
Uh-huh.
Are we bringing that one back, Dr. Huber?
Yeah, it's still on our to-do list in terms of, information to track down.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's fine. I missed that meeting, so I'm just trying to figure out where we're at with that.
It hasn't fallen off or been forgotten.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that takes us to the end of the agenda. The board took care of all closed session issues in our first closed session, so we will go all the way to item 21, which is adjournment. And unless there's any objection, we will adjourn the meeting by unanimous consent. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.